Hi, my name is Christina Baltais and I'm from Toronto, Ontario. This May 12th is the Global Millions Missing protest for ME health equality. We're asking our governments for increased funding for clinical trials, research, medical education, and more public awareness. 13 years ago, I realized how marginalized this disease was when there were no diagnostic tools, there were no FDA-approved treatments, and I was really left in the dark. Not much has changed since then. This disease affects 15 to 30 million people worldwide, and of those people, 75 to 85% are unable to work. And that's because the quality of life measurements are equivalent to that of someone living with congestive heart failure. Recovery is really rare. It's only about 5%, and 25% of people are housebound or bedbound, and they're like that for years and sometimes even decades with no treatment. That's why for this Millions Missing protest, I decided to showcase some of my artwork. My artwork is directly related to my experiences living with this disease for as long as I have, and given the current climate. And I hope that showing my artwork can help bring awareness and to this disease, as well as promote some change. So much needed change.
Exiled into the Shadowlands symbolizes how ME makes one physically, emotionally, and socially isolated. This is the fallout from historical neglect, disbelief, and judgment surrounding this disease. Shame and isolation have been shrouds over this community for decades. For many, their own beds become a prison sentence of unknown duration, served behind closed doors, unseen, unheard, and still disbelieved, becoming but a whisper of your former self, inaudible to the world. Paralysis in time and body epitomizes my most severe days, when my body feels completely weighed down, drained of its once familiar strength. I enter a limbo state of not living, but not dead, just suspended in a world of half-living, trapped within my own body. A body I am intrinsically bound to, whether in sickness or in health. Forfeit of identity represents the world I built and come to know being turned upside down. This disparate reality was full of parameters and constraints, so much so that I had become barely recognizable to even my own self. I had no choice but to surrender, and in doing so, forfeit my former self. Sea of Grief speaks to the river of grief that is ever flowing and shared amongst this community. Our Sea of Grief holds all the lives lost and suffering endured because of this disease. All of us have had to let go facets of our lives once held so dear, no matter how hard we fought to preserve them. My most piercing grief is knowing what my life could be like without this illness, and the lack of control I have over that. Energy lanes symbolizes the invisible line that exists for all living with ME. Pacing ourselves within our individual energy limits prevents something called post-exertional malaise. To push past our energetic capacity has consequences. A crash lies in wait, seeping in 24 hours later, or even days later, into our bodies. A crash is an exacerbation of all our symptoms, and can last for days, weeks, or even years depending on the disease severity. This is by far the most frustrating part of ME, because it forces me to hold back myself with the tightest reins at all times, to preserve any fragments of health that may come my way. Resting as resistance represents the days I feel as if I'm lying in wait, waiting for my health to slowly improve, waiting for answers as to why and how my body could get so sick in the first place. Understanding the whys and hows of this disease is dependent on research, which is dependent on funding. My most steady goal is to meet these answers while I'm still alive. It's also to help clear the pathway for those who follow behind in our footsteps. In the meantime, I will use my body and experiences as a catalyst for change. If I view resting as a form of resistance, I am able to make peace with my body and this illness a little more.
Thanks for watching, and to find ways to get involved, you can visit www.millionsmissing.org. Bye.